In 2002, I had a rather interesting job. I was a game tester at Activision, and one of the games I was testing was a super secret job called Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast. I got the job because I answered a trivia question about how long a person would digest in a Sarlacc's stomach. You had to go through a couple layers of security to go into a room where we tested it, and every CD-ROM was numbered. We each had levels, and mine included a bar and Cloud City. I wrote a bug report regarding a voice. The programming wasn't a problem, but the bartender sounded like Jar Jar. I suggested that audiences might not like that. Much to my surprise, the lead tester got an email back directly from George Lucas regarding what I had written. I thought I was in big trouble. But it was the opposite. Lucas gave a general note to everyone that if anyone else found anything that even slightly resembled Jar Jar, it was to be removed from the game. That was the biggest hope I had, that Attack of the Clones would be great.
I was wrong.
As I said in the last video, Jar Jar wasn't the worst thing about the series, and Episode 2 showed it. I had stood up for the series against a lot of criticism, so as I watched Attack of the Clones in the theater, I sunk in my seat, embarrassed. Andor was originally going to be 5 seasons, each year being 1 year in the lead up to Rogue One. When it got shortened to 2 seasons, I thought it had been shortened by Disney. I was partially right. Hollywood studios are infamously low on patience. They would rather make $1 million today than $10 million in a week. They're short-sighted and usually can't grasp the concept of word of mouth. In the case of Andor, it was a slow burn, being watched over time as word of mouth spread. This actually works better if you're a streaming service which bills monthly, but being studio executives, they could only see the immediate returns when it was released. Added to that was the high price tag of the series. It was a miracle they allowed a second season. All that being said though, it turns out that Tony Gilroy was part of the reason for its being shortened. According to interviews, he claims that he was overwhelmed by the size of it, and he came to realize that, at the pace they were going, they wouldn't be done for 15 years. By that time, the actors would look too old to match their original selves, and everyone would be burned out. It makes sense, but I can't help but wonder how much of this was him doing damage control for the backlash they had from fans knowing the story was going to be truncated. At any rate, they determined to shorten every year into a single arc. Each arc is the length of a movie, which is the way we watched the original series, so that's fair enough. But still, I can't help but think it would have been better as 3 seasons rather than just 2. As it stands, 3 of the 4 arcs feel a little rushed. The only one that doesn't is the first arc, which actually feels stretched. I'm genuinely curious what they would have done with this storyline if it was a full season. Would it have felt too long and killed the series as a result? Anyway, let's get into it. It begins with Andor on a mission. Like with most parts of this series, it doesn't play it like he's doing everything on his own. This isn't James Bond. It takes a village to topple an empire. The contact accidentally looks at him, which, after spending so much time with Luthen, we might wonder if it's going to cost her life. Instead, we get what will be an important theme of this arc.
If I die tonight, was it worth it?
It seems like such a simple line at the moment, but it becomes an ongoing theme throughout the season, especially near the end. And everything Andor says to her explains the reason for everyone's sacrifice, how they each made it worth it for themselves.
You're coming home to yourself. You've become more than your fear.
And then he goes in to steal the ship, and things go immediately wrong. It's one thing I can say in favor of this. You never want a plan to go too smoothly. It's sometimes hard to do as a writer because you love your characters, but you have to throw things at them and put them through detours, or there's not much of a story there. You might as well show them back at the base. Aside from that, I actually thought Disney had stepped in and pushed Tony Gilroy to have more action. He claims that it was his decision, but again, he might be covering for them. Either way, his claim is that he was annoyed at being criticized for being boring, so he threw this out for them and said, "I dare you to be bored now."
I have a ball. Perhaps you'd like to bounce it.
Anyway, it looks good. It's just, they bordered on making the stormtroopers and TIE fighters unthreatening again. Anyway, he gets to what we will later learn is Yavin, and is captured by 2 groups of bickering people. I call them the Lost Boys. They'll turn out to be the fractured members of the rebellion, the first settlers of the rebel base. They're scattered, unorganized, and as we are reminded far too many times, petty and childish. And we're left to wonder how they're ever going to form a rebellion together. Just as the prison was a microcosm of the Empire, the Lost Boys are a microcosm of the disjointed rebellion. The Imperials, meanwhile, show a more united front at this time, meeting at a hidden lair in the mountains where they will discuss some of their most recent plans. We cut back and forth between the disjointed rebels and the seemingly unified Imperials to show the contrast, but we are also given hints at the cracks in the Imperial machine. Though they act in concert with one another, every department is keeping secrets, and even though they've come to a meeting to discuss how to accomplish a goal together, many of them are scheming in their own little groups. Something Krennic does not discourage, as he goes to Dedra privately to discuss her thoughts rather than having them aired to everyone. This whole section is reminiscent of a real meeting the Nazis had in 1942, when they worked out the details of the final solution. Just like in the show, it was a secret meeting for only a select few. They were in a building surrounded by snow, and their meeting was not to be recorded. Though the real one got recorded anyway, and is why we have a record of it. There's even a movie which used the records as the script. It's called Conspiracy, and it's an enlightening and horrifying watch. You'll see some of the details they put into Andor, such as them taking breaks and meeting up in little groups around the hors d'oeuvre tables, discussing plans which will kill millions of people. Most chillingly, it was held in an equally casual way as what you see in Andor, as if the murder of millions was like fumigating a house. It's the perfect way to illustrate the space Nazi theme.
How we deal with matters here must be held secret from our enemies. We control events better when we control opinion. Today, each of us becomes a bearer of secrets.
Now, the group in this room is, of this moment, the tightest of closed circles. Any security violation will be brought to the Emperor's personal attention.
Then there's the third storyline, the Rebel Moon migrant storyline. We see what happened to Brazos Bix, B2EMO, and Willman. He's the odd one out because his name doesn't start with a B. They probably picked on him for that. I don't know what happened to this woman. She was piloting the freaking ship. Where's the damn driver? Anyway, they're working as immigrants on a planet, and I have to admit, I'm not crazy about this storyline either. I think the immigrant angle is important, especially in today's world. It also often plays a role in a lot of authoritarian takeovers, which I think is why Gilroy included it. But it doesn't quite fit here. The issue with immigration is when a group of people from one government go to the lands of another government. In this universe, the problem is that one government is taking over everything, so there really is no such thing as illegal immigration or undocumented workers when everything exists under one government. I also have a problem with this storyline because it winds up being the same thing we just saw. The characters are under threat, and Cassian comes to rescue them in the end. Oh, yeah, spoiler alert again for all of Season 2. And worst of all, when they take off, they leave B behind. B, no! Wait, but that means B survives. That means an opening for more stories. Spin-off series? No. Fanfiction, that's it. I want to see B2 fanfiction out there ASAP. Make it happen, people! To be clear now, I do like the way the story is told. I love that they have this little shrine to Marva. And I think some interesting elements are established here. But I have to be honest that I feel it's the weakest part of the series. And there is, of course, the most controversial part of the series in it. This one, the part I can't say on YouTube. It's a statement about our culture that we can say the words massacre, slaughter, genocide, but not this. I think it's the same mentality which stops us from talking about it on YouTube that also causes it to be so controversial of a scene. But here are my feelings about it, best summed up through Gandalf's words.
Do not ask your pardon, Master Elrond, for the black speech of Mordor may yet be heard in every corner of the West.
What Gandalf is saying in this scene is that everyone should hear the horrible truth, even if it's difficult to hear. We can only face the darkness if we speak of it openly. We can only begin to understand it if we see it honestly portrayed. This is difficult to watch. This is a horrible thing. This is triggering. All the more reason to see it, so we understand just how terrible it is. It's not always about being entertained. Sometimes it's about learning to empathize.
For the black speech of Mordor may yet be heard in every corner of the West. It is altogether evil.
Now to transition to a lighter subject, the dinner date with Sirill's mom, my personal favorite part of this arc. Beginning with the erotic music as Sirill and Dedra try on their clothes. We get not only a fun look into their relationship, but also we find how important it is to both of them they impress this woman. Dedra's shaking hands show us how nervous she is, and Sirill isn't there to comfort her, because he's just as scared. The mother doesn't disappoint. When she first strides in, We see a moment when the performance completely takes over. She disregards her son and focuses entirely on Dedra, studying her like she's a foreign object and an enemy to be outflanked all at the same time. She spends her time abusing her son and poking at Dedra for a weakness. We learn an important thing about Dedra, that she was raised in an Imperial kinderblock. This is perhaps the show's only true mistake with the lore. When she was a child, there would not have been an Imperial kinderblock. At least not one that was part of the Galactic Empire. Now, this can be easily explained as a smaller empire, or it can be overlooked. Writers are human after all, and mistakes are made, even by the best of them. But there are a couple interesting elements here. First, calling it a kinderblock. The word kinder means child in German, and even though Germans have not been Nazis for many decades, it still plays into our collective unconscious. The Mandalorian did something similar when they cast Werner Herzog, with his deep German accent, as the main villain.
Bounty hunting is a complicated profession. This being the case, proof of termination is also acceptable for a lower fee.
Sorry, Germans, you're never going to fully live that era down. Also, making the second part of that word block implies something cold, something uncaring. It's not a kinder school, or a kinder nursery, or even a kinder orphanage. No, a kinder block, like a stone or a brick. But the main thing this information does is it adds to that theme of motherhood I spoke of in an earlier episode. This is the fourth one.
I don't have one.
Although this time, it is the lack of a mother.
My parents were criminals. They were arrested when I was 3.
Her only connection to parenthood is the shame of their being criminals. For all we know, they could have been rebels. But that doesn't seem to matter to her. She was raised in the Imperial propaganda machine, so her parents would be remembered only as wrong. Her present choices reflect how that built her belief system. Cold. Systematic. It sort of needed to be an Imperial one too, because there's a certain amount of indoctrination which is taught her from birth, which has formed her identity. When at last Edie bullies her son into leaving, all the skills Dedra has learned her whole life come to bear down on her. This is what makes us love a great villain, when the writers find a way to let that villain use his or her most evil trait for good. Characters like Tony Soprano, Walter White, and Saul Goodman have been great examples of this. And now we can see Dedra Meero.
I will guarantee a level of engagement, but it will be inversely proportional to the volume of anxiety you generate in our lives.
Quite a mouthful.
I'm not done.
Then we cut to Sirill. Well, let me tell you something about my wife. She rarely laughs at shows and movies. She loves a good comedy show, but she usually smiles or scoffs. Rarely laughs openly. When it cut to Sirill lying on the bed, she nearly bowled over with laughter. And finally, there's the wedding storyline. And I'm going to start with the obvious, the costuming. Like I said in an earlier episode, I'm not big into fashion. Ever since COVID, I've spent most of my time in my jams. But, damn! The wedding itself is used to explore culture and tradition. Science fiction and fantasy offer unique opportunities to portray sociological habits, and to explore the nature of that. But just like language, it can't be random. Even if someone doesn't know what you made up, the mind can sense when it's seeing or hearing bullshit. Everything in this wedding feels authentic, thought out as if it's been around for thousands of years. This same sort of exploration was handled in the first season of The Mandalorian, and will forever have lines like "This is the way" and "I have spoken" in our heads. And even though the Chandrella customs are way more interesting, we really didn't need 3 episodes of it. However, it did give us this moment between Clea and Vel.
Just 2 single women surveying the prospects.
It also spoke on something many people of today need to learn, that standing up for what is right comes with sacrifice. Too many people think that one can make a stand for their beliefs without cost. They want to have their cake and eat it too. They forget that the great leaders of social justice sacrificed a great deal to stand up for what was right. This is portrayed through Mon Mothma's friend, who stated that his political beliefs were strong for most people, but when it came to sacrificing his money for that cause, he can't handle it. Mon Mothma, on the other hand, understands this sacrifice all too well, and we watch her world fall apart. This whole series, she's been the one with the most to lose, the most to give up to rebel against the regime. She even has to give up her childhood friend. This arc is that crumbling which results in her giving it all up, which she exercises through dance. It may go on a bit long too, but I think is a great way of showing how she's setting herself free. Notice how it's intercut with the escape scene with Cassian and the others. They're going free, and so is she. And it all harkens back to the question that Imperial engineer asked. If I die today, was it worth it? This has been part 5 of an 8-part series I am doing on Andor. I'm covering every arc, with the videos coming out on the 1st of the month. Hopefully that pace will stay up through the new year. This year has been a wild one, but this series and the wonderful community that sprouted up around it has been a great respite. And if you enjoy my views on storytelling, you may want to take a look at my books. The link is in the description. Books make great holiday presents, hint hint. Relic Worlds is a series that is most like Star Wars, but I'm going to mention another one here that I should have during the Aldani arc. It's called The Great Heist. It's the true story of the biggest bank robbery in history, and, strangely, how all the money was returned. It's probably the wildest true story I've ever heard, certainly the craziest I've ever written about. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and happy travels, everyone.